Hi, it's Ryan Scott from churchsetup.com, and we get all kinds of questions about the ATEM Mini Pro and the ATEM Mini Extreme from our potential customers, and then a lot of our customers come back with questions as well, wanting to know which one is best for which situations. Should you get the ATEM Mini Pro? Is it enough for you? Or should you get the ATEM Mini Extreme? Is it enough for you? And what's the difference between them? Is it just the amount of inputs? And so there are several differences between these two devices, and we're going to get right into it. So let's talk about the ATEM Mini Pro versus the ATEM Mini Extreme, and let's see which one is best for your situation. All right, when we're discussing the ATEM Mini Pro versus the ATEM Mini Extreme, the first thing that people will notice is the difference in footprint. This is the ATEM Mini Pro. It is very small. If I cover up my face, my camera might focus on it. I don't guess so. It's relatively small. It takes 4 inputs. You can put it on any kind of desk, but I mean, it fits in the palm of your hand. Very portable if you need to go portable. And so this works for a lot of people that want a small, simple setup. And then you have the ATEM Mini Extreme, which is basically its big brother, and it looks like this. It's a lot larger. It's still not huge by any stretch of the imagination, but it takes 8 sources, and there are tons of buttons on this thing. And a lot of people, they actually get intimidated by how many buttons are on this. And so we're going to talk about this. There's no reason to be intimidated by all the buttons because most of these buttons you'll never use anyway. But we'll discuss that and talk about the differences and the similarities. And before we get too far, let's go ahead and start with the similarities of these and see which one, what the similarities are so that we know what both of them can do. And really, at a base level, both of these devices can act as capture cards. So if you're using a Mac, especially trying to get a camera into the Macintosh computers, if you're not running NDI, you have to have capture cards, and Macs are closed in. So you're either going to run an external chassis, which a lot of people don't, or you're going to be limited to the USB dongles that you can put in, and it's taking up USB ports. And sometimes if you use like a hub to give you more USB ports, the capture cards don't work quite well. And so you have that problem, especially with Mac. With PC, you can put an internal capture card, but then you're still limited and everything. These work as capture cards. So you can have 8 cameras attached to the ATEM Mini Extreme. You can have 4 attached to the ATEM Mini Pro. You connect it to your computer with a USB connection, and it basically becomes a capture card for all of your cameras, although it does bottleneck you down to using one at a time rather than multiple at a time. It has a USB connection, like I just said, so you can connect it to your laptop, you can connect it to a computer, you can connect it to a Mac, so you can connect it to anything that has USB. However, the USB does run one direction, so there's no bringing in anything with USB. USB goes out, so you can record with it, you can send it to your computer, but there's no input there. The only backwards compatibility that USB port has is that you can attach it to a mobile phone, like an iPhone, and tether it and use that as an internet source so that you can live stream remotely by just tethering your phone to the ATEM Mini Pro, and it sees it as an internet source. So that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're like in school sports and you're traveling from field to field. Having the ability to just tether your iPhone to a USB port is very, very handy. And both of them have that functionality. Both of them work with multiple cameras. Like we've said multiple times, the ATEM Mini Pro can handle 4, the ATEM Mini Extreme can handle 8. And while we say cameras, what we actually mean is HDMI sources. So you can plug an Xbox in, you can plug like a Pro Presenter machine if you're in church using Pro Presenter or Easy Worship or something like that. PowerPoint, Keynote, you can just plug those in with HDMI, and it's sources. So the Pro can handle 4 sources, the Extreme can handle 8. They both feature built-in encoders. So at Church Setup, we don't sell the base ATEM Mini, because the ATEM Mini it has no encoder, so it has no ability to record internally, has no ability to live stream directly. The encoder in the ATEM Mini Pro allows it to record. You can hook up a USB hard drive to that USB port and record directly to it. You can live stream directly from the device without needing a computer running OBS or any other kind of streaming software. Both of them do that. Both of them can record and live stream simultaneously, or you can record or live stream one or the other, but you can do both at the same time if you want. And both of these, the Pro and the Extreme, both of them have an ISO version. Now, there's a problem with that naming, which we've talked about before. There's a problem with the naming of ISO because in the video camera world, ISO means kind of like the volume knob on the sensitivity of your sensor in your camera. So, you know, in low light, you'll turn up the ISO so that it kind of artificially boosts the light. In the Blackmagic design world with the ATEM Mini Pro, ISO stands for isolated. So both of these have an ISO version, and isolated just means that you can record all inputs simultaneously, individually. So with the regular ATEM Mini Pro, the regular ATEM Mini Extreme, when you're recording, you get program out. So if you switch from camera 1 to camera 2 5 minutes into the show, that's what happens on program out. That's what the live stream sees, and that's what's going to be on your recording. However, with ISO, you get the program out recording, but you also can get a recording of every camera individually so that you can go back and, you know, instead of switching from camera 1 to camera 2 5 minutes in, you can say that was the wrong camera switch. I wanted to go from 1 to 3 and I just hit the wrong button. You can go back into post editing, and because you have all the cameras recorded individually, you can say, okay, at 5 minutes, I'm gonna switch the cut from camera 2 and show camera 3 instead. You can do that kind of stuff. That's the ISO versions of both of these. Now, I will say that they also both come in an SDI version. I'm gonna be talking mainly about the HDMI versions, but if you're running SDI, a lot of the comparisons are the same. However, for this video, for this live stream, I'm really just talking about the SDI or the HDMI version. So now that we've learned the similarities between these, let's talk about the differences. So there are key differences between the ATEM Mini Pro and the ATEM Mini Extreme. Of course, the ATEM Mini Extreme is larger, has more features, and so you can do more with the ATEM Extreme than you can with the ATEM Mini Pro. However, with that said, in my experience, especially with churches and schools and things, the additional fancy features of the Extreme are not even used by a lot of people. So there's nothing wrong with the Pro. It just has less features than the Extreme. But if you want to go with the Pro, there's nothing wrong with that. It records in the same quality. It streams in the same quality. It's still a very quality device. The differences between the ATEM Mini Pro and the ATEM Mini Extreme start with the amount of inputs. As you can see, the ATEM Mini Pro has 4 inputs, and the ATEM Mini Extreme has 8. So when you're looking at the back of the devices here, the ATEM Mini Pro, you can plug 4 HDMI sources as inputs into the back of the HDMI, into the back of the ATEM Mini Pro, whereas you can do 8 with the ATEM Mini Extreme. When it comes to monitoring, one of the big differences between the Pro and the Extreme is that, as you can see, the Pro on the top here, the Pro has 2 microphone inputs, but it does not have a headphone output. The ATEM Mini Extreme does have a headphone output. So whatever the live stream is hearing, the ATEM Mini Extreme, you can monitor it right from the device, whereas the ATEM Mini Pro, you don't have a headphone output. The other thing is that the ATEM Mini Pro has 1 USB port, whereas the ATEM Mini Extreme has 2. With the ATEM Mini Pro, if you're going to connect it to a computer, you lose the ability to record using the ATEM's encoder. So the way this would play out is, let's say you're wanting to use the ATEM with Zoom, and you're having a Zoom meeting. Because you're using the USB port to connect to your Zoom machine, you don't have any additional USB ports to plug a hard drive into to also record. Whereas if you have the ATEM Mini Extreme, you can use 1 USB port to plug in a hard drive and record, and you can plug in your computer to the other USB port and use the ATEM Mini Extreme with the computer as well. Another benefit, if you're in high school sports or college sports or something, and you're going around and you're broadcasting from remote locations, the ATEM Mini Extreme also allows you to tether that phone using 1 USB port, but also to record your broadcast in full quality using that second USB port for a hard drive. When it comes to video outputs, and this is a big one for churches especially, when it comes to video outputs, the ATEM Mini Pro has a single HDMI output. With the ATEM Mini Pro, you really need the multi-view. And what multi-view is it basically shows you all of your cameras at the same time. The multi-view will show you how much time is left on your hard drive for recording. It also shows you your audio levels and things like that. You really have to have multi-view if you're going to use the ATEM Mini Pro for anything except for switching in a capture card. With the ATEM Mini Extreme, you get 2 outputs. HDMI output number 1. At the very edge of the ATEM Mini Pro is a whole slate of buttons right here. whatever button you push is what is going to show from HDMI output number 1. You kind of get a little bit of control, push button control of what is showing to whatever monitor you have connected to HDMI output 1. So we have a whole video on this, but a lot of churches that want to show video up on their screens, what a lot of people call iMag, but they'll want the video up on the screen, or they'll want to switch from a video camera view to like Pro Presenter view, like a sermon slide or a video or something like that. You can actually run your Pro Presenter feed through the ATEM. So you'll plug it in as like in our church, our Pro Presenter machine is plugged into source input number 4. So whenever we select number 4, Pro Presenter shows to the live stream. But then HDMI output number 2 actually runs to our projector. And so I can show camera 1 just by pushing, the camera 1 button. I can show program out just by hitting the program out button so that they see what the live stream is seeing. But if I hit the button that has number 4 on it, my projector will actually show Pro Presenter and just stay on Pro Presenter. So we have a whole video on this. You can find it on our YouTube channel. But it's super, super convenient if you want to use HDMI output to do something other than just giving you some kind of multi-view. So this is a picture of a hybrid workshop event we did called the Worship Workshop. My wife puts on this event every year, and we had a panel discussion. And so we had a unique situation where we had 3 remote panelists, but then we had my wife is sitting there on the stool. She's live and we're on stage. So we did this so that we could have a hybrid event. We had an event where people were watching online on the live stream. And then we also had people in the room that could watch this live. And so it was a hybrid environment. So we used the ATEM Mini Extreme, and our HDMI output 2 is what is showing on the wall using the projectors, what's showing on the wall behind her. And we're using what's called Supersource from the ATEM Extreme. I'll talk about this in a minute, but I was able to show that up on the wall. And then because I'm using the ATEM Mini Extreme Supersource and the program out to go to HDMI output 1. And then the live stream is actually seeing this video footage. So they're seeing what's projected on the wall, but they're also seeing my wife and everything else. So it was very confusing to set up, but with a push of a button, we could do both, and it was very, very, very helpful. So that's just one of the big benefits of using like the ATEM Mini Extreme over the ATEM Mini Pro is you get more flexibility. You can do some different things. Another difference between the ATEM Mini Pro and the ATEM Mini Extreme is that the ATEM Mini Pro has a single what Blackmagic Design calls their media player, whereas the ATEM Mini Extreme has 2. So you can see on the ATEM Mini Extreme here on the screen, it says MP1, MP2, stands for Media Player 1, Media Player 2. If you look on the ATEM Mini Pro above that, what you see is a button that's called Still. I don't like the fact that they call it the media player because what they really mean is showing still images. A lot of churches are using Pro Presenter or Easy Worship or something like that in tandem with the ATEM Mini Pro, so most people don't even use the media player. Next, one of the things that the Extreme has that the Pro does not have is what is called Supersource. What Supersource is basically, if you look at the ATEM Mini Extreme, you have 8 buttons, and that's 8 sources. So it could be 8 cameras, it could be 7 cameras and a Pro Presenter machine or whatever, but 7 sources or 8 sources can come into the ATEM Mini Pro. Supersource acts like a 9th source. But rather than bringing in a 9th unique source, it is a hodgepodge, however you want to do it, of all of your other sources. So going back to that image that I was showing you, I had to use Supersource for this. So I have Pro Presenter, which is showing, if you look on the screens and the sides, you can see kind of the full screen logo that says Worship Workshop and has 2023 in it. That's up on the TVs on the side. That's the graphic, or it's actually a video that's moving around a little bit. But if you look behind the each of those 3 panelists, you can see that what's behind them is actually the same thing. And that's because that's coming from Pro Presenter. It's just a looping video. And we were using it to just display as a backdrop, basically. But it's coming in as source number 4. That are showing. Camera 1 is the fellow at a desk with the plaid shirt. Camera 2 is the the fellow in the middle that's kind of washed out, too bright, and camera 3 is the fellow on the right with headphones, and then camera 4 would be the Pro Presenter feed that has the graphic on the screens. And what we did is we built a Supersource. So Supersource took feed number 4, took camera number 4, which is the background, and put it in the background, and then took camera 1, 2, and 3 and arranged them in that picture-in-picture kind of style. So anytime we pushed this little button on the ATEM, because we had Supersource programmed, it was like we have 8 sources, but then we have source number 9, which is the Supersource, which would take and mix that, and that's what would show whenever we would push Supersource. You can't do that kind of thing with the ATEM Mini Pro, but with the ATEM Mini Extreme, you can. That's kind of the difference between the ATEM Mini Pro and the ATEM Mini Extreme. Like I said, there are some things that I didn't cover, but they're more advanced stuff that most people in my experience don't use. And so that's really the main differences. So the question then is, which one is right for my situation? Which should I get the ATEM Mini Pro? Should I get the ATEM Mini Extreme? I think the real decision comes down to how many cameras are you going to run with? Are you going to run with 3 cameras? Then if you're going to do more than 3 cameras or 3 cameras, I really recommend the Extreme, because if you're running 3 cameras and you bring in Pro Presenter or Keynote or PowerPoint or whatever, you don't have any more flexibility. You're kind of maxed out. Whereas if you had the Extreme, you still have some more sources if you want to add another camera or anything else in the future. The second question is, do you need some of those advanced flexible features like 2 HDMI outputs? Do you want to have 2 USB ports? What kind of advanced functionality or extra flexibility do you want with your switcher? And if you want something more than the ATEM Mini Pro can provide, the Extreme is an obvious upgrade that gives you a lot more flexibility.